Hi everyone, the defence we're looking at in this video is the key defence of truth. Generally, if something is true, you have a good defence to an action in defamation. So how does this work? Remember, you've got your three elements for defamation. A defamatory imputation, that is something which reduces the defendant's reputation. You'll see there's nothing in that test that says untrue. 2, it must be published to a third person, and 3, it must identify the plaintiff. Now the question becomes, if that statement which reduces a reputation is true, is it still defamatory? Technically, you could read the test, and there are cases like Yusepsov, which included probably true allegations which did reduce a person's reputation. However, generally, true statements are not defamatory because of the test in that case of Rofe and Smith newspapers. And they say there that no harm is done to a person's reputation, no wrong is done to a person by telling the truth about that person. The presumption is that by telling the truth about a person, their reputation is not lowered beyond its proper level, it's merely brought down to the proper level. So if someone was presumed to be a good, charitable, decent person, and the truth came out that they were ripping off a charity, that would of course reduce their reputation if they were stealing, etc. But that's not a matter of reducing their reputation, it's a matter of re-leveling their reputation to the actual truth of what their reputation should be. So that's how Rofe and Smith newspapers thought about it. This type of defence has been picked up in the Defamation Act. So Section 25 says that sets up the defence of justification, and that it says that it's a defence to the publication of defamatory matter if the defendant proves that the defamatory imputation carried by the matter of which the plaintiff complains are substantially true. It's important to note that it's the defamatory imputation that must be true, not the general statements made by the defendant that aren't that sting or defamatory imputation, which was carried by what has actually reduced the plaintiff's reputation. And that's the thing that must be true. An example of this is in the case of Wilson and Bauer Media, that's Rebel Wilson's case. In that situation, Bauer Media had published a series of articles which were strongly stating that Wilson had lied about a number of things. When you read the case, or have a look at our video summarising it, you'll see that the defamatory imputations were not that Rebel Wilson was one age and she had stated her age to be another age. What was the defamatory imputation was that she lied in stating certain things, and that she was a serial liar. So the fact that her age was actually based on a birth date in 1980, and that the Bauer Media had thought it was something else, that, yes, her age was truly that of someone born in 1980, but that was not the defamatory imputation. The defamatory imputation was Rebel Wilson lies about her age. Bauer couldn't show that she had done so. They hadn't done their homework. They had relied on someone else telling them, an anonymous, unreliable source, rather than looking to see whether she had lied when they said that she had lied. So you have to look at what is the imputation identified by the plaintiff, is that substantially true? And that's what the defendant has to prove. What does substantially true mean? There's a definition of it in Schedule 5 of the Defamation Act. Do look at our Queensland Defamation Act. Yes, there is a uniform Defamation Act scheme in place, but it's important to refer to our local act if you're in our local Queensland courts or doing our assessment. So we know that we should look at the meanings of words in acts, that they're often given special meaning. Section 4 of the Defamation Act tells you to read the dictionary in Schedule 5. Go down to Schedule 5 And it tells you what those words substantially true from section 25 mean. And they mean that the defamatory imputation is true in substance or not materially different from the truth. So it doesn't have to be 100% exactly, completely only truth, but the imputation, the substance of the imputation, not some peripheral matter of it, but the substance of it, must be not materially different from the truth. This is an objective test, and that means the defendant must show that this imputation is actually true, that a reasonable person would infer that the meaning, that what a reasonable person would infer from the defamatory matter was actually true, or at least substantially true. If the statement's false, but the defendant thinks it's true, that doesn't matter. This is an objective test. That means objectively, outside of the head of the defendant, not relying on any one person's idea, is this statement actually factually, substantially true? Even if the defendant believes it, that's not what we're looking for. If we were looking at what was inside the head of the defendant, that would be a subjective test. That's not what we have here. The defendant has to show objectively that it's actually true, not that the defendant believed the information was true. And you can't discharge the burden of proving the truth of the statement by the defendant believing it, or by including in an article, for example, "it is rumoured," or "I was told that," or "it's my opinion." This, as you can see, puts some obligation on a defendant to check the truth of items before they publish it to third people. And that's particularly important for journalists, etc. They can't just say, well, one source told me and therefore I'm not liable for defamation. They're expected to check the truth of the imputations they make. So that's justification and truth.